The Supreme Court pulled up Election Commission for not complying with its previous judgment on candidates with pending criminal cases. In September 2018, the Supreme Court gave out a verdict stating that all the candidates who are contesting this election should declare their criminal cases in newspapers. Such candidates were expected to put out this declaration at least 3 times before the date of election.
In a wrap for the Election Commission, the Supreme Court has today asked its response on a contempt petition which is saying that the Election Commission is not cracking the whip on enforcing the past orders of the top court, which said clearly that candidates against who criminal cases have been slapped need to disclose this by way of an ad in newspapers.
The Supreme Court making it clear that the people have the right to know whom they are voting for in the elections.
क्योंकि क्रिमिनल रिकॉर्ड अगर ख़राब है तो हम उसको वोट नहीं करेंगे, भले वो हमारे पक्ष का रहे। हमको तो स्वच्छ नेता चाहिए।
वो हमारे लिए क्या करेंगे, वी शुड नो दैट फर्स्ट। और उनका अगर पहले का क्रिमिनल रिकॉर्ड नहीं पता होगा, देन हाउ कैन वी कैन सी द मोस्ट ऑफ द पॉलिटिकल्स आर दे आर क्रिमिनल्स।
अब ये देश चलाने का है। अगर हम सब्जी मंडी में गई तो हम देखते हैं कोथिंबीर का भाव ये कैसा है, ये कैसा है। तो ये तो बड़ा नेता है, तो देश का कारोबार कैसे चलेगा अगर वो क्रिमिनल होगा तो।
During the 2014-2019 parliamentary term alone, there were 230 MPs with criminal cases against them. 134 MPs had serious criminal cases against them. Mirror now asks, why did the EC flout the verdict of the Supreme Court? Isn't it a fundamental right of the voter to know the criminal background of the Neta they are voting for? Let's debate.
Well, the reason why we're bringing this up is because several tainted candidates have been reissued tickets this year to contest the elections again, and that should be something that really worries us. Here's some lists of people who have now filed their candidature in spite of having serious criminal cases against them. Hansraj Ahir is with the BJP with 11 cases against him. Gopal Shetty, Mumbai North constituency of the BJP, has 10 cases against him. This is actually like a Hall of Fame at this point. Kirit Somaya, Mumbai North East constituency of the BJP, 10 criminal cases against him, has now been handed a ticket. Mr. Shashi Tharoor, Thiruvananthapuram constituency of the Congress, an abetment to suicide charge against him. Pappu Yadav of the Madhipur constituency is now contesting as an independent. 24 shocking criminal cases against him. Udayan Raje Bhosle of the Sathara constituency of the NCP, 23 criminal cases against him. Ram Shekhar Kateria will contest as an independent. He has 21 cases against him. And Adir Chaudhary of the Barampur constituency of the Indian National Congress of the Congress Party, 16 cases. Raju Shetty of the Swabhavan Paksha has 12 criminal cases against him. MB Rajesh of the Palakkad constituency, CPIM, 11 cases against him. And this is a drop in the ocean, because if you look at the data of the and this data came up some time ago, were basically, they were a total as of March last year of 1,786 people, either in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha or in state assemblies, who have criminal cases against him. So that's 1,700 out of roughly about 4,800 altogether, and that should worry us a great deal. Now, why are we bringing this up today? Because in September last year, the Supreme Court instructed very clearly that Parliament ought to form laws that prevent people with these kind of cases against them from contesting elections and from becoming members of the houses of state and centre. The Parliament has done no such thing. The Supreme Court also instructed the Election Commission to insist that all of these candidates with criminal cases against them must publicize the cases by putting advertisements in the newspapers and on television channels telling us clearly what they have been accused of and what charges they're facing. The Supreme Court today has held the Election Commission perhaps pulled them up for not doing as instructed. And what are we left with? criminal netas because the Election Commission hasn't followed the Supreme Court's rules. Parliament hasn't followed the Supreme Court's order. If we have criminals in Parliament, what kind of a country will be run? Swadesh Singh for the BJP, Vinayak Dalmia for the Congress, PDT Acharya, former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, Shailesh Gandhi, former CIC, Dinesh Trivedi is a senior advocate to the Supreme Court, and Kungshuk Nag is a senior journalist. I welcome all of you to this conversation. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Acharya, my first question to you. The Supreme Court today pulling up the Election Commission for not following orders and not being stricter with politicians. How worrying is this for you, for someone with your experience?
Well, let us understand what the issue is. We are discussing this issue in the context of a petition filed in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
For contempt of court. Now, what the Supreme Court had said in that particular case in 2018 is that Election Commission should prepare that Form 26, which should contain the required information about the criminal antecedents of the candidates. So that is what the Election Commission was supposed to do. I think the Election Commission has done that. The form has been amended so that a candidate who is standing for election can fill in all these details about the criminal antecedents. Now, after that, the Supreme Court has actually directed that the political parties and the candidate should put out in the website, and the candidate, of course, should tell the political party to which he belongs that about his criminal antecedents, and the political party should put it up on the website of the party, and also they should publish this in the prominent newspapers, 3 newspapers of that area. So these are basically the directions issued by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
In that case. And I think,
Mr. Acharya, forgive me, I'm going to interrupt you. I have to interrupt you because there's a problem with your audio, and we're just going to get that fixed in a second. Let me take the question forward now to Mr. Shailesh Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi, if you can hear us, and while we get the audio fixed for Mr. Acharya, this is a very worrying trend. Parliament has not followed the instructions of the Supreme Court. The Election Commission has not clearly followed the orders to the absolute letter, and we continue to have criminals in our system. It's almost like we're doomed to have to live with this.
I think we are looking at the problem from a wrong perspective. Let me share with you, and this is data I have got. Supreme Court in 2014 proclaimed that all criminal cases against netas should be settled in less than a year. Only 16% were settled. So the Supreme Court is not even able to get its courts to listen to it, and we are talking of others not listening to it. But more importantly, is everybody who is charged as criminal a criminal? I think it's a fundamental thing which we are not addressing. And we've had this declaration of people giving their assets, giving the criminal charges against them, and I don't think it's changed anything. These are cosmetic things. The only solution is a proper trial, and then a convicted person can be called a criminal. Our entire judicial system, our entire legal system works on the fundamental that you are innocent until proved guilty. For the sake of netas, by a very peculiar kind of logic, we've said, no, you are criminals unless you are proved innocent. How fair is this system? And it's not going to work. Nothing will change. We keep on making these cosmetic changes. And are you aware that only 6% of the netas are actually convicted? So are we saying we want to brand 100 people as criminals, out of which only 6 get convicted? I think we need to look at some fundamental things. Courts must decide this fast, and it is possible. It's not at all difficult. The courts are not doing their jobs, with due respect, I am saying. And the courts do their jobs, we'll not have criminals in the assemblies and Lok Sabha.
No, but Mr. Gandhi, why do you think? Do you think the problem is not enough convictions? Do you think the problem is not enough evidence? What is the problem?
I don't know Who knows? No, my worry is we'll get converted to a banana republic if we keep on saying everybody who's charged as criminal is a criminal. Tomorrow there'll be a leader who will ensure that everyone in the opposition has a criminal charge. And that's not very difficult. That's fairly easy to do. After 10 years, people get released. And therefore, I'm saying our whole perspective, our hatred, distrust of political class is now leading us to an extreme situation. And I think we should reconsider our position.
So let me bring in Mr. Kingsuk Nag, who is a senior journalist. Mr. Nag, here's my question. There is a difference, of course, between just filing a complaint and a charge sheet. A lot of these people have been charge sheeted, and that is this. And the charge sheet is only filed after the police have conducted an investigation and they found enough evidence to bring in a charge sheet. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Gandhi, that until a court calls you guilty, you are innocent, and then you appeal to another court and then finally to the Supreme Court. I understand that. Why is it that we have the Supreme Court today, and I could read out some portions from the September judgment, but the Supreme Court says very clearly that our democracy is at threat because of the criminal nature of the people who occupy important positions. Let me just read this out. It says, we recommend to Parliament to bring out a strong law whereby it is mandatory for political parties to revoke the membership of persons against whom charges are framed in heinous crimes and grievous offences, and not to set up such persons for elections for Parliament as state. This, in our attentive, plausible view, would go a long way in achieving the decriminalization of politics. So, Mr. Nag, here's the question. The court has said, and this is the Supreme Court that says, charges framed in heinous crimes. Is that in some way a rebuttal to what Mr. Gandhi said?
You're asking me?
Yes, I am.
Well, I've done a lot of study on this subject. I can tell you, let us go back to the fundamentals. Your electoral system is all flawed, and you are not making in fundamental reforms. Don't look at courts. In 1971, when I was a young boy in New Delhi, the electorate of my constituency of New Delhi was just about 1 lakh. And today, the electorate is about 20 lakhs. The number of seats in Lok Sabha have not gone up. There were 543 seats in 1971. Even today, there are 543 seats. In the meanwhile, the population of the country has increased by so many times. As a result, each candidate in a parliamentary constituency has to appeal to a huge number of more voters. So more money is required, and along with this, because of the need for money, more criminals are coming into the play. So fundamentally, instead of looking for what courts are saying, and by the way, I also had filed a case in Andhra Pradesh High Court, you have to change your electoral system, increase the number of seats in Lok Sabha from 543, why not to 1500? So that the constituency sizes are less, the electorates are much lesser. But that nobody is paying attention to. If you have got only 543 seats and your population has gone up 3 times, but the number of seats have not gone up, what will happen? People who are more resourceful, who have got more money, who can collect more money, will come into the system. And most of this money is collected from a lot of other sources, including business, illegal businesses. And that is the fundamental reason why criminalization in politics is increasing. So instead of looking at what Supreme Court said or any High Court has said, let us go back to the fundamentals and try to do some reforms like that. But let me tell you, politicians are not interested because guys who have gained from the system are not going to change it. And let me also tell you another fact. In 1998, I used to stay in Delhi, and at that time, in 1971, the number of seats in Lok Sabha had been frozen till 2001. Therefore, I attempted to hold a conference where we got all political leaders, and they had come from Pranab Mukherjee to Jaswant Singh to then Home Minister Indrajit Gupta. But all of them said, yeah, this is a good statement, but why will we change? So long as you don't make the system more democratic and don't allow any changes and not increase the number of seats, this sort of problem will arise. So let's tackle it fundamentally and not look at what Supreme Court has said and High Court has said. This is my opinion.
But fair enough. In the meantime, let me just put Pappu Yadav back on the screen, and we'll understand why this is a problem. We just put that back. So Pappu Yadav, who used to be with the RJD, who's now contesting as an independent, has various charges. 6 of the charges against him are attempt to murder. 3 charges, criminal intimidation, theft, kidnapping. 2 charges of dacoitry, voluntary causing hurt with dangerous weapons, cheating, dishonesty, trespassing, extortion, kidnapping. 1 charge relating to dacoity, mischief, murder, forgery, voluntary causing hurt to deter a public servant from doing his duty, undue influence or influence in an election, and trespassing and breaking into a home at night. This individual is contesting elections in our country. Dinesh Dwivedi is the senior advocate, in fact, who is currently fighting that case. Mr. Dwivedi, why did you decide to bring this up, and what is the thought process behind the case that has been filed?
No, let me correct. I am not in this contempt matter, but the earlier matter where the issues were broadly decided, I was there. See, the problem is, I'll begin with what Mr. Gandhi, Shailesh Gandhi said. I suppose I am right. I am right in calling him Shailesh Gandhi.
Yes, yes, you are.
See, it is the principle of criminal law that no one is a criminal unless proved guilty or convicted. But then this is the principle of criminal law. What we are dealing with is a civil right, a statutory right. Right to contest is not a constitutional or any other right, but a civil right merely, which can be regulated by the statute. So if Parliament wants, it can regulate. But then I am very clear about it that there is absolute lack of commitment, because these kind of recommendations have been given for the last 25 years by the Election Commission, by the Law Commission, but no one has bothered. Therefore, we were compelled to file a public interest litigation in Supreme Court and argue the matter out. Eventually, what was found was that this is an area which is exclusively reserved for Parliament, and therefore Supreme Court can at best recommend. Now, when Supreme Court says Parliament may do so, it is merely recommending, nothing more. Supreme Court cannot compel legislation. It is Parliament's prerogative. And Parliament, comprising of politicians, of whom 34% are criminals, will never do it. That's the problem that we are facing. So far as the question of trial, etc. is concerned, for trial you require courts. As it is, the subordinate courts are clogged with work. Now you require more courts, very many courts. But then the fact is, when the petition was filed, the government sanctioned funds for only 12 courts in the entire country. Now just imagine how can 12 courts in the entire country look after the criminal cases of 1,000 and more politicians currently involved post charge sheet. This is not merely FIR, but charge sheet. So therefore, the point is that in the absence of funds, there are no courts. There are no courts, therefore the matters can't proceed in the courts. There's a complete stagnation. So we've been pressing for that. Courts have been trying, but they can't really. The situation cannot be held, cannot be solved unless you have this political commitment. And the political commitment is wanting. When they sanction funds for 12 crores, you can imagine the commitment.
Absolutely. So I just want to bring in the politicians at this point. Swadesh Singh of the BJP. On the screen right now, if you can see, the members of your party who've been handed tickets, who have serious cases against them. Let me do us all a favor and place before the panel that you will say that they haven't been proven guilty, but consider the charges against Mr. Hansraj Ahir, who's contesting Chandrapur for the BJP. 11 criminal charges against him. Gopal Shetty, Mumbai North, 10 cases. Kirit Somaya, 10 cases, Mumbai Northeast. Why do these people have tickets from your party?
Look, Faye, first we have to see what kind of cases are on them first. Second, that this is good that they have declared in front of common people that we have these cases on us, and now we are coming to you whether you vote for us or not. There are hundreds of politicians, those who have not declared their assets properly, those who have not declared their
Mr. Singh, let me point out to you, nobody's doing us any favors. These are rules of the Election Commission that require these people to declare. These are rules of the Election Commission that require these people to declare the cases against them.
Definitely.
They're not doing us any favors. No brownie points for this declaration. I'm sorry. I won't allow that. Please tell us, why has your party handed out tickets to these individuals? Is this the best you could do? You couldn't find a person in Mumbai North or Mumbai Northeast that didn't have a case against them.
What kind of 11 means what means? Okay, tell me what are the cases against Hansraj Ahire? These 11 cases. We are in politics, and definitely our opponents can have cases against on us. So this is very much possible, as Shailesh Gandhi ji was telling us, that in politics it is means opposition parties can have cases on you at right point of time. So we also see that how serious these crimes are. If there are 11 cases on Hansraj Ahire ji or Gopal Shetty ji, so what is the seriousness of these cases? Whether it was just scuffling between two groups, or it was an attempt to murder charges. And one thing I want to clear here, that there are two things: criminalization of politics and politicization of criminals. The problem with this current issue is that now many criminals have entered politics. In 80s and 90s, criminals were helping politicians, and now these criminals, especially from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and other states, if you see Sayyid Sahabuddin, you took one name, Pappu Yadav and Mukhtar Ansari. If you see, they were criminals in 90s and they entered politics. And because of introduction of these EVMs and all, that number has reduced. And they are also trying to become a good people. And they are portraying at least themselves that there is no booth capturing on polling booths. So this criminalization of politics and politicization of criminal is the bigger issue. And now you see that whether BJP has given more tickets to criminal, or BJP has even given tickets to criminals. BJP has not given a single ticket to criminal. Having case is another thing. Giving ticket to criminals is a different thing. These are Karyakartas of Bharatiya Janata Party. Those who have cases, we have to check how heinous these crimes are.
Well, let me read out of the declaration that was made by Mr. Hansraj Ahire in 2014 to the Election Commission. One charge relating to concealing with intent, committing abetment of assault, criminal intimidation, abetment to mutiny, being a member of unlawful assembly, wrongful restraint, obscene acts, punishment for rioting, assault or criminal force to deter a public servant from discharge of duty. And this is from 2014. The 2019 declaration we're still waiting for. Do you want me to check on all of your other candidates as well? And let's also not be ignorant about the fact that Mr. Singh in Lok Sabha...
Having unlawful gathering of people, having unlawful gathering of people, a politician who is in opposition before 2014, Hansraj Ahire ji was in opposition at center and state both. So what do you expect from him? Means any public servant can have a case that he misbehaved with me. So these are two cases. So you can see that
what
how
about criminal intimidation,
whether
abetment
there is a
to
case
assault,
of attempt to murder, any problem with women.
What?
So definitely opposition, there is a
abetment
difference
to
between
assault.
Abetment to assault, that is relative concept. That is not attempt to murder.
Okay.
So,
how nice.
Means
All right, do you believe, one second, Mr. Swadesh Singh, do you believe, one second, Mr. Singh, listen. Do you believe that Shashi Tharoor of the Congress should be given a party ticket and allowed to contest, given that he's defending charges against him for abetment to suicide in his wife's death?
Let me tell you one interesting thing here.
I'm sure you will, yes.
If a voter is in jail, he has no right to vote. But if person is having any criminal case against him, that person can contest election on this land, and that is part of our law. So he has all the right to contest election. The problem is with our rule. If you are behind the bars and if you are a voter, you cannot vote. But if you are behind the bars, but you can contest election. So we have to check our system, and we should come up with
no,
new
but so tell me something, Mr. Singh, as a member of the party that has run this country with a full majority for the last 5 years, you had the political will for demonetization, for GST, for actually backdating and changing the laws of political funding since 1976 to today, which you did and rammed through Parliament. Why didn't you make this change if you believe that it is this unfair? You were fully within your rights, and the Supreme Court instructed Parliament to make this change. Why wasn't the change made? Why didn't your party bring in that change if you believe it is unfair?
I want to give three things here. First, only the leader who introduced political reforms in Indian politics, that person was Lal Krish Advani ji.
And where is
Second,
he
you are
now?
talking about the Supreme Court case. You know Ashwini Upadhyay, who is
You
a
just
BJP
retired
leader. He
Mr.
was one
Advani
of the
without his own
petitioner
consent,
of this
Mr.
case.
Singh.
Please check your facts.
You're taking
Third
credit
thing,
for his work.
We introduced mother of all electoral reform, that was one nation, one election. We tried to make consensus on that, but we were not able to. People say that dictatorship
What are
will
we,
come. Why you are having
Mr.
this
Singh,
kind
हम
of
किस चीज के
debate?
बारे में
We
बात कर रहे हैं? आप
deputized
किस चीज की
election
जवाब
commission
दे रहे हैं?
prepared
आप
a
प्लीज
report.
सोचिए,
Our law
सोच लीजिए
commission,
ना.
our law ministry prepared a report. That was mother of all electoral reform.
I'll tell you what the mother of all
That was considered
electoral
as mother of all
reforms was,
reform.
Mr. Swadesh
But
Singh.
there was no
One second.
consensus.
Mr. Singh, the mother of all electoral reforms was the electoral bond that you released and you introduced in spite the fact that the Election Commission told you that it is bad for transparency and it will actually increase for, opaque funding. You went ahead and did it anyway. You actually removed all caps on foreign funding for elections. You removed all caps on corporate funding for elections. Despite the fact that the Election Commission had serious objections, you went ahead and did it. That is the kind of electoral reform you brought in so that you can bring in dirty money into politics and we will never know about it. This is an opportunity. The Supreme Court asked you to make the change and you didn't make the change. And what should that tell us about you?
All the funding transparent. Means our effort was to make all the
I've already had 2 hours of discussions on this. I'm not going down this rabbit hole one more time. One second. Vinayak Dalmia of the Congress. Please tell me, Mr. Vinayak Dalmia, you have, let me see, Adil Chaudhry of the Indian National Congress, 16 criminal cases against them. He was the ex-president of the BJP, of the Congress in West Bengal. Why has he been given a ticket again? Couldn't you find anybody else in West Bengal who didn't have 16 cases against them?
Tanvi, let me start by saying that
let
the
me
Congress
start by
Party
telling you my name is
extremely
Faye
serious
D'Souza.
about
I am the editor of this
trying
channel.
to introduce.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I apologize. So, Faye, let me start by saying that the Congress Party is extremely serious about cleaning up politics and trying to give as many good people and clean and honest people a chance in politics. If I was to read from the judgment that you're referring to, it says very clearly, for democracy to thrive, we need as many good people in politics as possible. And I'll say further, if you read para 116, point number 4, it talks about the political party's obligation to start a website and release names on this website. I can say this with confidence and conviction. The Congress Party is intending and planning to do so. We're intending to list down the names of candidates who have criminal charges against them on our website. And I believe we are the only political party in these elections who are going to do so. If any other political party was so serious, even if it was the BJP, they should also come ahead and do so because the people of India deserve transparency. There is a fine line between somebody being a criminal and certain criminal charges being aspersed against a particular person. There is a fine line. I completely agree with you, however, that the severity of the charges are important. The seriousness of the allegations are important. While everybody is innocent till proven guilty, the seriousness matters. And therefore, we are very, very determined and committed to publishing these names on our website. And no other political party has the courage and gumption to do so. We're not telling anybody to be grateful for
Mr.
doing
Dalmia,
so. We're merely
are you
following
aware
the
of the
letter of
cases
law.
that Adil
We're merely
Chaudhry has
following
against him?
the Supreme Court judgment.
Mr. Dalmia, are you aware of the cases that Adil Chaudhry has against him right now? May I read them out, please?
Suddenly, we can look at specific individuals and you don't need to read them out to me. I'm aware of the charges.
But I would request you to get my name right. I'm going to ask you a second time. My name is Faye D'Souza. The charges are Mr. Adil Chaudhry of the Congress, contesting from West Bengal, 2 charges of murder, IPC 302. 1 charge related to abetment of offence punishable with death or imprisonment, 1 charge related to criminal intimidation, 2 charges related to the punishment of criminal conspiracy, 2 charges of criminal trespassing, 2 charges of acts done by several persons in furtherance to common intention, 1 charge of being a member of unlawful assembly, 1 charge of wrongful restraint, 1 charge of voluntarily causing hurt, 1 charge of mischief causing damage to property. Not serious, Mr. Dalmia, 2 charges of murder?
Very serious. They're very serious charges. However, they have
Yes.
not been proved. And I was trying to explain to you the Congress's mechanism. But let me elaborate. The Congress has a very stringent process of check and balance. And if there is a serious allegation against any particular candidate, he or she is compelled to give an answer up to the Congress president and give an explanation, a serious, detailed explanation as to why these charges were levied against this person and if there is any merit in these charges. And only after the Congress senior leadership, including the party president, is convinced, is the ticket given to the individual.
So tell me something. Out of
other
curiosity,
parties,
Mr.
including the
Dalmia, could you
BJP,
please tell us
follow the
what
same
was
modus operandi.
would you please tell us out of curiosity what was Mr. Adil Chaudhry's explanation for his 2 murder charges?
Faye, I'm not in a position to explain to you the details because I'm not privy to those details.
Okay,
but
fair
I
enough.
can
So-
tell you that we go through a rigorous process. The candidate is put through a rigorous process. He has to explain. It's almost like a show cause notice. He's been given a show cause notice by the party that please explain to us why these charges were levied against you and is there any truth to it. And I'm saying again, we are the only party who is following the Supreme Court judgment. Para 1, if you read para 116, it talks about putting the names up on the website because we believe the people of India deserve that transparency. We are going ahead and putting these names up on the website.
All right.
If
So
any other
let me
political
open
party
this
even
up
half as
to the
serious,
rest of the
I
panel
implore
and also
upon them
point out to our
put their names
audience.
up on the website.
Let me also point out to our audience that the information has to be declared. As soon as it's declared, it's public information. It's available on any number of websites. Also, the Election Commission has a rule, and the Supreme Court has instructed the Election Commission to have a rule that this information be published not just on your own website, Mr. Dalmia, but in 3 local newspapers and on television channels at a prominent time of day and page so that everybody can read it. But I do want to go back to Mr. Dwivedi for a rebuttal to what Vinayak Dalmia said. And I want to point out that we are talking here about cases of murder. We are talking about very serious cases. And these are charge sheets. These are not FIRs or complaints, Mr. Dwivedi.
See, the statements of the political party representative itself demonstrates their commitment. But I'll keep that aside for a moment. They will always cling behind this principle of until proven guilty, you are innocent. But that is the principle of criminal trial and criminal law and conviction. But that's not the principle applicable to civil rights. See, civil rights can always be regulated. For instance, in service jurisprudence, which is a matter of civil right, they always regulate the service rights. And they say if you are charged with this crime, then you can be dismissed from service. So this kind of clinging to this principle itself demonstrates their lack of commitment to the whole concept of decriminalizing politics. Now, Supreme Court may keep on saying it unless, you see, the basic problem is unless we as citizens realize this problem. And unless we as citizens try to vote them out, nothing will emerge because for the political parties nowadays, winnability is the main criteria. And winnability comes with criminality. See, the study has indicated that the criminals have 12% more chances of winning the election than the normal candidate. Now, if winnability is the factor because each and every vote counts in the legislature, so they will always go for it. The commitment will never come. And that is what we are noticing. For 25 years, both Election Commission and Law Commission have been asking for it, but they don't do it. So the obvious reason is that affects the winnability. And winnability is the chief criteria now for giving tickets to the candidates.
Mr. Vinayak Dalmia, go ahead.
As I said, the criminal candidate
Let me please come in on this.
Yes.
As a young person myself who had entered politics, I completely agree with the sentiment and I agree with what you're trying to say. So please don't make no mistake about this. If you look at the percentage of candidates with criminal records, which political party is ranking number 1 from 2014? It is the BJP. If you look at the list of the people who got tickets,
we're not there in politics for this.
19% of them, and these are currently serving in parliament. They are currently serving in Parliament, sir. 19% of them have a criminal record. 19%. That is the highest number.
But
as
you
a
have the
proportion
second
of their
largest
entire
number of
pool.
criminals in
Today,
your party.
Of the list so far declared, so far of the list declared, 35 of their candidates have a serious criminal record, including sitting cabinet ministers. You have Nitin Gadkari ji on one side, you have Shakshi Maharaj on the other side. You look at the allegations levied against them. You know, if the Prime Minister was so serious, as you rightly said, he had the political will for all sorts of other decisions, right or wrong, demonetization, GST, electoral bond, we can debate those decisions. But he had that political will. Why did he not have the political will for actual serious cleaning up of politics? He had a golden opportunity. He had the mandate of the state governments. He had the mandate at the center. He had a majority government, not even a coalition government. If he was serious about cleaning up politics, he would have started with his own house. He would have started by putting his own house in order and then looking at reforms through laws of parliament. But he did neither.
So tell me something, Mr. Vinayak Dalmia. Okay, so I understand your argument and we will take that forward to the BJP representative. But I have a question for you. Why wouldn't the Congress party then attempt to hold itself to a higher standard? If you do believe the problem of people with serious cases against them is criminalizing politics, as said, and I'm quoting the Supreme Court at this point, why wouldn't you hold yourself to a higher standard and just decide that we won't allow someone with serious cases like murder against them, charges framed in heinous crimes? Why wouldn't you just do that? But you've given a ticket to someone with 2 counts of murder against him.
The Congress party is actually holding itself to a higher standard. As I keep saying to you, we're putting the names on the website. We go through a rigorous check and balances, and there are many cases where people have not been given a ticket if we find evidence that there were real cases against them or there were real allegations against them. And even if the candidate was winnable, the senior leadership and the senior executive committees of the party has refused candidates in multiple instances. Even if the candidate, our internal surveys may have shown, was potentially a winnable candidate. I don't see the BJP doing that. I
have a question for you, Vinayak Dalmia. Did you believe and did you personally
above morality?
Yes. Did you believe and did the Congress party believe that when MJ Akbar was accused of so many counts of sexual harassment that he should have stepped down from his office of power?
Absolutely, because he's holding a high office like a cabinet post. If he's an MOS,
yes,
and there are allegations against them,
yes,
then he needs to step away till those allegations are clear. And it is not apples to apples. I know the analogy you're trying to make.
I'm just trying to understand because I completely agree with you, and I argued alongside that MJ Akbar should be removed from his position of power because as MOS, he has power to influence witnesses, power to influence evidence. Do you not believe that a member of parliament also has power?
Absolutely. He has power and he or she has responsibility to dispose that power for the betterment of people.
Wouldn't it be fair then to assume that when we talk about the laws and the respect to the chair that is being occupied and the service that is being rendered to the country, when we find a manager or a CEO or an MD of a bank in violation or accused of violation, we ask the person to step down until investigation is complete or just on accusation. Same thing with MJ Akbar. He was accused. We asked him to step down until the investigation and the case was complete, until his name was cleared. Why can't we expect the same from political parties who hand out tickets to politicians? Step away from the power until your name is cleared. And I'm quoting the court again. Charges framed in heinous, grievous offences. Charges framed. So this is not a nuisance suit that someone will come and file against you. The police has to investigate and file those charges in front of a magistrate. So let's not pretend that this is what opposition parties do to each other. That's not the same thing. I want to understand why we don't hold our politicians to a higher standard. Shailesh Gandhi, this is my question to you. When we find something like this in the private sector, that person is removed from office immediately. And then you fight your cases on your own time. These are the rules of service, like Mr. Dwivedi quite rightly said.
In a private In a private company, the inquiry or investigation is done in a very short while and a decision is taken. It is not left like that as we are in India. And in fact, I was very amused with what Mr. Dalmia was saying. He seemed to suggest that Mr. Rahul Gandhi is a super judge. He gets all the explanations and then he judges whether a person is guilty or not, and then he takes a decision. Let me invite him to put all the explanations on the website itself. I would still submit that we are looking at the wrong end of the issue. 20% sanctioned positions are not filled in the judiciary. If we do that, we can get rid of all these problems. The only solution is a fast judicial system which can then decide whether a person is guilty or not. Changing this is one of the most dangerous things for this democracy. Because please understand, an unscrupulous person or unscrupulous government in power can put charges against lots of people. Anyone who opposes them seriously can be seriously charged. We've had people who have been charged with terrorist acts who are probably innocent and have got released ultimately. Therefore, let's not forget this. In our enthusiasm to say we want better politicians, let's not forget the rule of law, which is my submission. And I am hoping Mr. Dalmia will agree that he should put up all the explanations on the website. Or he must say that Mr. Rahul Gandhi is a super judge of sorts who can decide whether a person is guilty or not.
Well, I did see that Swadesh Singh put up his hand. Mr. Singh, do you have a rebuttal here? Do you want to
I'm
provide?
happy to answer.
Yes.
I'm happy to answer.
One second. I have to give Mr. Singh an opportunity to speak. Mr. Singh, go ahead. Mr. Singh, go ahead.
Yes. If you see that in the case of MJ Akbar, when he was charged, he stepped down taking responsibility and he was stepped down. But what happened in the case of A. Raja? Supreme Court intervened. Supreme Court intervened in 2G case. Then only A. Raja resigned.
Mr. Swadesh Singh, you are hardly in a position to brag about this.
We know that Congress president is out on bail.
No, first of all, Mr. Singh, Mr. Akbar stepped down after intense pressure from the media, also because a lot of his victims were members of the media. So, no, that's not something you can take credit for. I'm sorry.
What Shailesh Gandhiji is saying, that is right.
No. Mr. Singh.
No.
Mr. Singh.
I'm telling you, because of Supreme Court's intervention, only A. Raja resigned. We are not taking any credit. We are saying that MJ Akbar resigned. What Shailesh Gandhiji is saying, that is perfect.
We've run out of time, Mr. Singh. I have to leave this here, but I'm just going to say before we wrap up the case. One second. I'm just going to say that finally the judgment is left with. Can we just 1 second? Finally, the judgment is left with the voter. All of this information will be made public. There are websites called mynetha.com. There's ADR. They all do excellent work. There are websites where you have lists of every single candidate in your constituency and the criminal cases against them. This is how we solve the problem. Don't vote for someone with a criminal case against him. Hold that person to a higher standard. Just like you would expect the person who's leading your organization or wherever you work, someone who's in service of this country should not have 12, 14, 16 serious, heinous crimes against them. Don't vote for these people. It's as simple as that. It will actually list out what these crimes are. No brownie points for any political party for handing out these tickets to these accused criminals. We will continue to bring you this information because this is the information, I believe, that will be most important to our audience, most important to our voters. We will bring you information of who has cases against them, what kind of cases there are, and which parties are handing out tickets to people like this. Thanks for watching.